Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I want to start by thanking the last two Cash App donors since my last upload. They are S-Jock 2 times and Sir Anthony again. Thank you both from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. The American bank account that I have was tied to my Cash App, and that was a mistake. I once took the funds from there, sent it to my other account from which I could pay salaries, as I told you I was going to do. That bank turned around and put other security things in measure, and limited themselves technologically. In short, that bank is trying too hard to be super secure without spending the money on its security. I can't transfer money from that account anymore, so I tied my Cash App to an intermediary Wise account. That worked. Alhamdulillah. Moving forward, I'll be able to use the money as I told you that I would. For the balance that is in the American bank account, I can't. And I request the permission of the donors to repurpose that money to allow my parents to use it as they see fit, because the new debit card was sent to their address according to the bank. That was the only thing that can happen. Otherwise, it would just sit in that account until the next time I'm in the United States, and I don't know when that will be, if ever. I may never get there. I don't know. So I request your permission. Starting with about 5 donations back, I will be able to utilize it, as I said previously, putting that to pay the salaries of the employees and for anything related to the channel. If you allow, I may use some of it to contribute to the cost of me going back and forth to visit my wife for the remainder of this school year. If you do not allow that, then I will utilize only my salaries from my jobs funds to do that, nothing from Cash App. It's up to you. Now that we got that out the way, I want to say that I want to tell you that it's important for you black men to understand 2 things, and then a third after that. First, you do deserve an apology, not only from Rhoda Osman, but from Western sisters in general, and from a growing number of pseudo-woke sisters, black women meaning, but from other nationalities, not even from the West. A growing number of them. And not only do you deserve an apology from that growing number, but the non-Western sisters that are not on this hyena false woke BS also deserve an apology, but that's secondary. I'm talking about you right now while still giving them credit where it's due, to be fair to all parties. The second thing that is important for you to understand is that you will not get that apology, and I think you know that. The third thing that is important for you to understand is why you will not get it, and you must examine certain things. Some people like to ask me, Black, why do you talk about the women in relationships? What about this money? What about working on yourself, self-improvement, changing your wardrobe? What about exercise? What about these routines? Look, I already told you, one of the best things black men can do is to get to know people of other cultures, and even races, but definitely other black cultures. To get to know our own history on both sides of the Atlantic. Why is it that there are some people in Ghana who can understand some black folks in Suriname? How'd that come about? Things like that. I've already talked about that. Outside of becoming Muslim, that is one of the best self-improvements I can recommend. See what happens when you don't want to even pay attention to that message of mine. You start saying that black Americans were the original Native Americans and that we were never in Africa. You start saying stuff like that, that everybody knows is insane. Now, it's one thing to say we were here before Columbus, but I'm not talking about these nuances that are supported by true statements and evidence. I'm talking again about outright insane statements that many of us like to make, because some of us men have a problem with being black. And I get sick and tired of hearing some of these things that come out of our mouths too. But let me go ahead and tell you. Here's what you need to analyze in order to understand why. You're not going to get this apology, black men, because first off, let's take a look at what Rhoda Osman did and why she felt comfortable doing it. And then let's take a look at Manosphere Highlights Daily's most recent upload, in which Big Herc interviews a former inmate of a woman's prison and what she had to say about how the women get down in the prison. And then let's take a look at what BGS talked about in his live stream about the question as to whether or not black women get bored with being married. Let's talk about that. Western black women that grew up in the colonies during bondage did not need sexual liberation, for the most part. I mean, they were to breed with African men and with European men alike. If anything, they were not allowed certain things like chastity. That was what was not allowed for them. And I think that to a certain extent, some of the Karens and Beckys and Ambers of the previous, or of the bondage era, antebellum era, looked around and said, well, gee, you know, she's free to do this with anybody, and I'm limited and restricted to this this zaddy that sticks it in the native women, the African women, and then in me. I'm restricted to him, and he's got less junk because, you know, Roger Stevens of the Roger Report did talk about this. The truth of that statement that we got more junk than other men can be debated all day long. We men, most of us men, are not going to debate something like that because, frankly, it doesn't behoove us. And honestly, what I've noticed is that hetero Southeast Asian men and hetero black men are the least likely to even worry about another man's junk. That's what I picked up on. I think hetero Native American men are probably very unlikely based on what I've heard, but I don't know many of them. I mean, their whole population, men and women alike, is less than 1% of the United States population. So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, the whole thing, not just Roger Stevens' report. Manosphere Highlights Daily talked about, he talked about this. Manosphere Highlights Daily showed and referred to Big Herc's video with that former inmate, and she talked about this. She said most of the women were getting down around, they were effing around with each other behind bars. Most of them were. You put them out in the free world, and we already know that people can say what they want about how easy it is to get laid in the States, but we already know what that is. Most men are not going to find it that easy. And even if they decided to pay, it's a very high likelihood that they would get robbed. So no, it's not easy. But women that identify as straight get locked up and they don't think twice about it. And then use men on the outside to get money on their books. She sat up and said that this is what happened. When they serve hot dogs in captivity on the women's side, they got to cut the hot dogs up according to a comment left underneath that video by one of the viewers, another viewer. When they serve hot dogs in these county jails on the women's side, they got to cut them up, but not on the men's. One man said that his dad was a doctor in 2 prisons, a women's prison and a men's prison. Now, the physicians know about these things. And he said that in the women's prison, 90% of the women turned 9AY. In the men's prison, 1/4 of the men turned 9AY. A fourth. You think that it's not that way. I mean, everybody would think that, oh, the women can sit up and just live in the prison and it's okay. And they don't really care anything about the men except very rare occasions when they might have a moment of weakness. But for the most part, it's okay. They're focused on Jesus and the solitude of their prison cells. But then, when it's the guys, somebody has to get hurt. Now, if you listen to Felice Johnson, it'll be more than 25. I don't know. I only know what the comments said. I think that the doctor would know better than others. I've seen evidence of what the doctor said. But the thing I wanted to get at here that was important to understand is that in the prisons, a woman has more value to a hetero woman than you, a man, a normal man, has to that same woman on the outside. And that's Western women in general. We're not limiting this to black or white or any other origin. That's what the F it is. Inanimate objects have more value than you do. Women have more value to other women than you do. A lot of these women that own male pets that are intact find their pets more valuable than you are. And we don't know what that percentage is, because who's going to sit up and self-report that, oh yeah, I've been banging Fido. What's going on here? What's going on is that in the West, you as a normal man you're not valued half as much as you think. And we know in the red pill aware numbers, period, that men are not valued. But understand, you're not seen as worth less, spelled with 2 words meaning less than someone else or something else. It doesn't stop there. It's worse than you being worthless, spelled as 1 word, meaning you have no value at all. It's worse than that. They assess to you a negative value that is below worthless. You have to compensate for the negative value that you bring. Meanwhile, they'll call themselves hetero, and a woman has more value than you do. And the only thing that has shown them the value that you can have is when a bunch of normal men who are not being appreciated by women pulled back and said, no more friend zoning, no more dates, no more shooting our shots. None of this. Our plans are in not only outside of the United States, but outside of the West in general. That's where we're looking. We're looking at traditional areas. And if you're not one of those traditional women, you can't compete. And that is where our success came in, and nowhere else. Our success did not come anywhere else. It only came in there. There, just there. When I say our success, I'm talking about the actual results, not the way that Western women felt about it. But Western women didn't really think much about it until that point either. Then they sit in cars and start recording themselves saying, you know what's worse than heartbreak? When a simp moves on. I got Replicant Fish to thank for that video when I saw it. I mean, the confessions are telling and astounding. And then there's more. BGS, shout out to him, talked about the low boiling contempt that the Western black woman has for black men. And he was talking in the context of the United States, not the West as a whole. But I know that this goes into the West in general. Hell, pretty much the African diaspora west of the Atlantic, it goes into that. Sometimes even on the continent, depending on where you are, because the continent is diverse. But I know that. And as he has called it this low boiling contempt and named it such, the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson has also talked about this low boiling contempt. He has referred to it as well, and rightly so. And he, in talking about this low boiling contempt, and both of them actually have been able to show evidence and proof that there is a low boiling contempt based on patterns of behavior that we can see and don't need studies and stats to prove, and that are also backed up and proven by stats and studies. Oh, it's messy. It's bad. Look, when you take the contempt, the low boiling contempt that Western women in general have for men, not Western men, but they have it for men, regardless of the women's origin, then you begin to understand what a baseline is. The baseline's worse than what many of us thought. Ali Wong, she's talked about it. My mother can never understand because she's an immigrant that was born in the 1940s, but I want to get hosed down by Michael B. Jordan because I have money and my husband doesn't. She sits up and says this. She spit out a baby for the husband, and that's how she feels about the husband, because she got a comedy deal and made money. And she even said, I pressured him into this, and now I'm looking saying I could have other men. But BGS had a video in which he asked the question, do black women simply get bored with marriage? And I'm not done watching that. It's a long video and I have a job. But he was talking about this in the video. And the funny thing about that is that this woman, in the part that I have watched, this woman, this wife, lost tons of weight. And the kicker comes in when the interviewer asked her, could your husband have married the woman that lost the 130 pounds? She said, looking back, I don't think so. That bitch knew he couldn't have from the very beginning. I don't think so. That's who the F she was from jump. That means she settled for him even though she was big. Because she was big, she settled. And then instead of the discipline, she got a lap band. And then the messed up thing is, what about the loose skin? I know, because a bunch of people in Saudi Arabia get those operations. A bunch of them, and they lose weight. They can't eat enough. And they do lose weight, and they lose it quickly, but there's loose skin. And it's oftentimes it's like, could you just walk more and eat less? Could you just do that? Could you just eat more vegetables? They got them in the supermarkets. Why won't you eat more of that? You know, culture in it. Oh my God. So they get them here more than in the States. It's more common. And they get the loose skin. And then, so I know that happens. So I look and I see her and I think, well, what happened when you had the loose skin? You was cheating though. She describes how supportive the husband was and how he only felt betrayed when she became a different person. He supported her through the dieting and the exercise when she tried it. But then she went and if my memory serves me right, she got that done as well, the exercise. Point is, she lost weight and cheated. And that's what happens. See, I heard about this on Strong Successful Males channel, a story in which a white couple fell apart because of this. She lost weight, got attention, cheated on the man and left the husband. Cheated with other men and left the husband. Broke her family up. She ain't fit for guck. This is the baseline, and they don't have to be ADOS to feel this somewhat low-boiling contempt for normal men. So now you must understand that when you get to the Western sister, she prides herself on being the most difficult to men. So whatever the Western woman by default is going to have against normal men, you must understand that the Western woman of African origin is going to double and triple that, because she sees herself as being the leader of other Western women in that regard. Can you pick up what I'm putting down? As I've stated for you before, the hatred is worse than what you think. This is not just, them not wanting the normal man. No, there is a low boiling contempt in the black population. That is the baseline. The only thing different from that is worse. That's it. And sometimes it is so much so that black women can't even sympathize with their sons. Sometimes they can, and that's what it takes for them to wake the uck up. But other times, even then it won't. Kirk Franklin, I just saw in a Telegram group that's private. I just saw where Kirk Franklin was talking about his own origin. He had to meet Rick Hubbard, and Rick Hubbard busts out crying. I didn't know. I'm sorry. He wanted to be there for his kids. Kirk Franklin's mom may have not known. I don't know what the full story is, but he got 2 DNA tests and she wouldn't have nothing to say. I want my son. What? Tell your son the truth. You see, it's a low boiling contempt. And even in traditional societies, to a certain extent, you might find that. A really low boiling contempt. They just can't stand you. They might be able to tolerate you so long as you don't seem to think that you're the equal of anybody else. But if you seem to think you're the equal, you're the least bit deserving as a person like they see themselves, God damn it, then they hate you. And that's why it is that Rhoda Osman felt comfortable doing what she did to black men in general, starting with black American men, but not ending. As I've stated, she felt like it was fine to do that. So damn what? And the hyenas felt like it was fine to support her blindly without fact checking. And when they realized that she effing lied, they still won't apologize to you. See, keep in mind, it wasn't a sister that wrote in some column years ago that if a man is falsely accused of the struggle snuggle, he shouldn't even fight the charge. He should take it and accept the punishment because of the other men that have struggled, snuggled, and gotten away with it. That was a Wyatt that wrote that. That was a Becky, a Karen, or an Amber that wrote that. Now that you know this, and they're allowed to outgrow this misandry depending on whom they befriend, and you know that sisters ain't allowed to outgrow the misandry. There is no social circle that allows that amongst the hyenocracy. Then what the hell did we expect? They believe that what they did and what they said and all of that was okay. They believed that it was okay, that you deserved nothing else. You never did. That you always deserved that. That's what they have believed, and they still believe now. As a matter of fact, if you go a certain number of years without something like this happening, without April Mason's cousin lying, and I don't know why they dropped the charges, but she made that stuff up. Camera evidence showed that, And April Mason will never apologize. They believe that if you don't get so-called checked and told by these accusations every so often, if ain't nobody talking bad about you, black man, every so often, that they owe someone else an apology for failing to go against you. That's how they feel. Maybe they feel they owe the apology to God or to Zaddy or to each other if they don't come against you every so often. That's what you must understand. Oh, the hatred is deep. That's why it is. That no matter how much you deserve the apology, you ain't getting it. And that ain't your fault. I hope that what I've said is a benefit. As always, black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum and black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it. Black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you for flying again with us on Jet Black Airways, with Jet Black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Until next time.